Well, welcome to the Rock Runners Report. This is our 15th episode this season, and I am super happy to be here with Zell. How you doing tonight, Zell?
I'm doing great. How's everybody doing out there in Star Citizen Land?
That is a great question, and obviously there's a lot of stuff going on. We have the ship Showdown going on. There's some persistent entity streaming stuff going on. And we're going to speak to some of that stuff tonight. But before we do, I did want to say a couple of things. Number one, we are shooting this episode a little earlier than we traditionally do. So if there is a little family life bleed over in the background, just hang in there. I'm sure it won't take too long. The family's kind of gotten their marching orders, but there's a little fella out there who doesn't always isn't always on board with those types of things. And the other thing I just want to say, and Zal, thanks for giving me the space to do it. I'm sure for any of you that follow the Space Shorts channel, you've noticed that we've been pretty shut down here the last couple weeks. The best way for me to say it is I am dealing with a all hands on deck family emergency, and we are kind of working our way through that. But sometimes in life you have those challenges, and that's okay. I am looking forward to some distraction tonight as we kind of get back into Star Citizen. So thanks for hanging in there. I promise you the Space Shorts channel will be back up and is just as active as it had been in the past. Once we get through this challenge. So I won't take any more of our time. Without further ado, let's get into the topics at hand. How do you feel about that, Zal?
Yes. Let's get into it. I think, the topic, it's a little bit of, flavor of the week. Only because it seems like CIG's gotten a little behind with, getting 317.2 out. It kind of put 318 behind the 8-ball a little bit. One of the things that we're going to touch upon a little bit tonight, we're not going to, go into, too much detail about it because it seems like a lot of people are talking about it as well. But we always have to give you our 2 cents. So,
that's true.
I guess really the bulk of it is, or the big deal is, how far has this pushed 317 or here we go, 318 out. We were supposed to see Evocati by, late August. And we've kind of blown by that. And by, from what they've tried to keep a little tight-lipped about is, when are we going to start seeing it? And they're going to say, basically they came out this week and said by late September. For sure. So, what does that do for seeing 319 before the end of the year?
It's
a few months ago, we were even talking about, possibilities of seeing 4.0 by first quarter 2023. So, looks like we're getting a little behind schedule. But one of the things that we spoke about this week is, for them to kind of halfway keep to their timeline, because I know a lot of this stuff they were really, really, really wanting to push out before, year's end, is what features are going to be cut for 318. These are the things that V and I talked about earlier this week is, and I'm just gonna have to say it. We've had a pretty good track record over the past several months now of you know, for people not being in the know, but kind of understanding how a lot of this plays out, of kind of keeping pace of uh, what what they might do. So we've actually had a fairly decent track record with that. So um, I guess we're going to speculate a little bit about it tonight. Um, of they haven't said anything, but I'm almost positive that a few of the features that they decided to uh, launch 318 with will probably be pushed back to 319. What do you think?
I could not agree more. I mean, and you're absolutely right. You nailed it. I mean, we really began to see the slide a little bit. What happened, I think, is because of the timing, of the military event, they kind of pushed 317 maybe a touch earlier than it was ready to go. It wasn't as stable. Of course, 317 won, but it began to slide a bit as well. But you're absolutely right. 317.2 was really where it became, the gap began to widen a little bit. And so after that, and they were talking about, I think you elaborated on, we were looking for an Evocati by late August, with some of the big issues, certainly persistent entity streaming, and with that kind of being more pushed back to late September, and we'll talk about that a little bit here in just a sec. I have to imagine that they're going to want to hit the IAE for a 318, and knowing kind of what's there, I think you and I have talked about that. There's some things that are probably going to be on the chopping block, and I just want to say I'm looking at you, the Cargo Refactor, and I'm wondering where you're going to be come 318.
Yeah, that one. That was another big ticket item, along with PES, that seemed like it was an absolute. I think a lot of these things that are not ready for prime time, that are going to probably extend the PTU cycle, a lot longer than they want to, things that they haven't quite nailed down yet, most definitely are gonna get pushed back to 319, or even further, depending on exactly what from what we've seen with what they've said so far with 319. They're adding a few gameplay features. They're adding the Clasher missions. They're adding the mission, or all the stuff that's going to go down at Korea, and what was the other big thing that they discussed was having the little buggy track.
Yes, the race. The racetrack was one new kind of some things you could definitely see happening. For instance, New Rivers and Stanton. We've seen, for instance, them working on the river tech. You could see how that you could see where they were along with that. The different crash sites. They just introduced crash sites, so you could see how they could iterate on that. The sand cave archetypes. We've seen a little bit about that. Maybe they'll have one ready to go. Hard to say.
Oh, that's right. The sand caves. That was another thing. If we look at the tracker, a lot of these things had finished up this month, and a lot of the other things seem to be finishing up at the end of September. So, and I guess my point is how many features were they trying to push out for 319 Because 318 are supposed to start, um, with persistent NAD streaming and a lot of the other server core tech. That's the big deal, is to get the server core tech out. So, things that I guess they had finished up with, they feel pretty confident with, that they can launch with 318, those will go. Things that, I guess next Inside Star Citizen is going to talk a little bit more about salvage. And so they may be pretty confident with salvage. Now, the one thing they really haven't talked about much, and you may be right about this, I'm still not completely sure, because, like I said, that was one of their big ticket items for 318, but it may be something for 319, was the cargo refactor.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. I mean, that's where I'm at with it as well. It's we have seen, we have seen these crash sites, right? We have seen River Tech. We have seen them talk about the Sand Cave Archetype. We've seen a lot of salvage stuff. We know that they're working on salvage stuff. I really, truly believe that, we're going to probably see, it would not surprise me at all that we see the Grey Cat multi-tool, the Drake Vulture, and we know that they've added the initial hull stripping tech to the Redeemer, for instance. So, or the Reclaimer, pardon me. So we know, we've seen, they've actually shown us these things. The one thing that we haven't seen a whole lot about is the cargo refactor. And just knowing, kind of listening today where they were talking about persistent entity streaming and the challenges that they faced as they introduced it, broke it out of the one line. They moved it from the feature branch to the game dev branch, and knowing that at that point there was a lot of fires, there's a lot of things that they have to fix, and knowing that they still haven't necessarily put it to scale, that's really the next big accomplishment. It's going to be very interesting, to see. That's the one big ticket item that, to me, it really is going to be so important, such a game-changing thing. But we just haven't had that kind of, canary in the coal mine, that bellwether that says this is coming. You know what I mean? We definitely are getting persistent entity streaming, and there's definitely a handful of these locations and this gameplay stuff and these shit. Obviously the Vulture we know is coming, and that we absolutely know that. I truly believe salvage is coming. They've showed us so much of that stuff, but it is that one thing, the cargo system refactor, that we haven't necessarily. They haven't tipped the hand a little bit, shown us some cards, and I'm biting my fingernails on that one, so I gotta be honest.
Well, I guess they're gonna, and this is pure speculation on our part, but
truly,
with what we know, persistent NAD streaming and the other server core tech is an absolutely, positively has to get out this next quarter.
It's a precursor.
So
you're exactly right. Other future tech cannot exist without this. This is a fundamental. It's like you cannot throw a roof on a house without a foundation and walls.
No. It's something that we had spoken about before, that a lot of the persistent bugs that we have right now is due to this core tech. Once persistent entity streaming gets in, the other core tech for server meshing, server sharding, replication layer, the whole shebang. But it starts with persistent entity streaming. So we know that is an absolute. And if anybody watched a little bit about, or watched a little bit of Inside Star Citizen, this we're recording this on Thursday, so if you watched it this afternoon, um, you notice they feel like they have it ready. It's in a state where it exists on their server right now in the cloud. We know it's pretty elastic, so it definitely can scale with no problems whatsoever. Um, but there's still a few questions out there. You know, we learned a little bit about maybe a few little new tidbits that we didn't already know. Today we were kind of hoping to get something a little bit more solidified. Uh, but how are you feeling with what you saw today?
I really was pretty happy with what I saw today. I mean, I understand that this is such a fundamental core tech, and really you hate to a huge leap forward, in the way that things are going to be handled. I mean, with adding this level of persistence where, I could go log in my character and, potentially Zell and I have used this analogy a couple times kind of in our conversations is, let's say I want to build a weapons cache and I want to stick it somewhere that's, on Lyria somewhere, and it's in a remote location and only I know where I've kind of set these weapons at. Knowing that, I could log off of the game and then, log back on and go do whatever, and then go, oh wow, that's, I should go pick up some of those guns and fly back over there. And and I don't know, one thing I guess I'm not entirely sure is it like a probability volume type thing where if I get into the area it's going to generate it. And I think that was one of our questions that Zell and I had, but I did, that's one of the first questions I think we would, kind of think about. It's like, if I set a pistol by a tree and I log off, how long is it there for Zell to see? Is it kind of tied? You'd have to think it'd be tied to my account, but we don't necessarily know. So that's one thing. One of the things that kind of was interesting to me was how they talked about life cycles. And then Zell, you said in a pre-conversation to us doing this today, and I think is a very, very sharp, and probably we'll find that's the truth. They're going to have some kind of a hierarchy on if they're going to have these. If certain items are going to have a life cycle, that means it does seem like there's going to be like a janitorial or a system cleanup where there's going to be incentive. They're going to incentivize cleaning things up. Some things they're going to want to absolutely persist. So there's going to have to be, I think you said what you mentioned is some kind of a hierarchy for the types of things that go on the server. So, that is to me a really wise thing. And then one other thing you mentioned, which, I'll give you full credit for, is the idea of if you do have a box or a cargo box or some kind of a storage solution, and maybe eventually have armoires or these types of things, weapons racks or these types of things. When you put things in those, I would imagine that they're going to have some things that are absolutely persistent.
Yeah, because at that point, if you were to, I guess the analogy I was making today is if you had a weapons crate, and we were working off what we had spoken about before. If we wanted to have a weapons cache somewhere, and we, try to, in a cave somewhere, or on Lyria or a Microtech, you put this weapons crate under a tree. We know that, games work on the containers within container systems, and Star Citizen is definitely one of the things that work on that premise for the way things get stored. That's obviously going to change a slight little bit with persistent entity streaming, but it still remains the same. We spoke to the fact that, yeah, this is the community, so we kind of laughed a little bit when we were watching them try to fill that hole with with those stuffed animals and ships hanging out of it and things like that. Is how with all the clutter that will be on the servers, how resource intensive is that going to be? And would you want to, because they kept bringing this analogy up a lot, where you set something somewhere, it'll be there when you get back type of thing. So one of the things that we spoke about was, would it be better if instead of, stacking like weapons up against a tree or something like that, if they wouldn't give us like weapons crates or just basically, the loot crates that we see in game where we could use those if we decided to, make a stash somewhere. And this is basically using the analogy that they used. That, wouldn't it be better off if we just put it in a container? That way it wouldn't take up server resources for, things just, lying around, so to speak. Now, I know, to kind of speak to the hierarchy a little bit, I know it's going to be a thing. It's, water bottles, food items, other consumables. Those will be something that probably won't persist very long. The server will clean those up, despawn them total. Maybe 20 minutes, and they'll despawn all those items. Now, things like weapons and armor, those will definitely persist for a long period of time. I'm not going to say indefinitely. When you look at a lot of different other games, that items will stay there for a long time. But, depending on the game and things like that, and I guess how resource intensive it is, after a while they won't be there anymore.
Right.
So now we also talked a little bit about if we get into situations where inside your ship, everything's going to be tied to your particular ID. So if you take something in possession, it tags that item with your ID, and then it all puts it on your database of all the crap that you own. Now, I'd say if you had situation where, just like the loot crate situation where it was like, oh, well, I'm going to find me a little far away cave somewhere and put a loot crate here. And inside the loot crate, I'll, store some items in it. Now, that loot crate gets tagged to me. It gets added to the database. And, the only resources that loot crate takes up is basically just the loot crate sitting there, which isn't that big of a deal. But everything else is just basically stored in the database. So no big deal there. Now, when I guess it becomes a problem is when you have a bunch of physicalized items just, kind of crammed in one location. And then, if I had a bunch of stuff somewhere and you had a bunch of stuff somewhere and Billy over here had a bunch of stuff somewhere and Johnny over there had a bunch of stuff somewhere, then that might start eating up some of the server resources. So after a while, I'd say if you just had loose, and I guess that's where it is, right? That we haven't clearly defined the idea, but having loose items around Yeah, I'd say it would, persist there for an extended period of time, but I don't think it would persist there indefinitely. Same thing if, we talked a little bit about, you know, when um, when you have um your outpost, your own base and things like that. Now, I'd say those would be created, are going to be created in their own little servers that, all those items will persist indefinitely. Same thing with your ship, stuff like, big ticket items, I think, like your ships, your bases, things like that, absolutely would stay indefinitely. If you had a set of armor or a gun just kind of laying out in the field somewhere, I'd say it would stay there for an extended period of time, maybe a couple of days, maybe a week, but I would say after a while, just random items just kind of laying around will despawn, um, eventually. Now, I don't know what, time limits they put on that. And I guess that's kind of a way to kind of explain the hierarchy.
Yeah, somewhat
So,
arbitrary, I would imagine. Based on some
well,
things. I mean, one of the things that you're absolutely correct about, and I think we chuckled about, is the fact that, let's say you have like a bunch of space whale, cush dolls type of things. Like and you're just throwing them in that hole, one after another. One of the things that's definitely going to happen is, it's going to begin eating server resources, and especially if the more people that come and look at that particular area, and they do talk about how they have this flexibility, the scalability, the elasticity of the cloud. But I would imagine, and I know that, Zell, it's not lost on you, because I know we chuckled about this, that some organization or some group is really going to test the boundaries of that, and determine how much, how many servers are they going to spin up to support, the 17,372 cushy,
storm walls that are in the hole.
yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? So, there's going to have to be some kind of a threshold, where, like, on almost like a matrix, right? Where, the value of the item, with it not being, like you said, it's not ships, it's not bases, it's a step down type thing. It's not a gun even, or armor. It's a step down type thing. Where you get so many of those, and the first one that you began to put down there, they start despawning. There's going to have to be some janitorial, or I think what they talked about, life cycle cleaning, and I have a feeling that's going to be relative to how many there are and how many people are looking at those things simultaneously. That's just the way server resources work. I mean, it can be exhaustive, it can't be infinite, but I'm sure they're going to try and strike some balance between making it as persistent as possible and having the servers also have some level of performance as well. We're probably not far out of it. And who knows, they may not have necessarily made those decisions now, because I think, as you and I discussed, the person, Benoit, I think it was that his name, that Space Dad was chatting with there, he actually kind of, and I wouldn't use the word fear, but he definitely, said it's going to be interesting to see how the players deal with this stuff, right? Because, players being what they are, they're definitely gonna put this to the test.
Well, that's the thing. They know how it works in a vacuum, with the dev teams on their systems. Well, I guess now it's going to the game teams. The developers, their systems are different than the game team systems, and so they're getting a little bit, more people um, added to to test it out, internally. So they know it works internally. And they're kind of, the guy, kind of was like, well, I don't know. We'll just have to see how it works out in a while.
Yeah, exactly. There was not, there, it definitely sounded somewhat, like it's like arbitrary, right? It's not, there was no definite, like, oh, you can absolutely do this, because it sounds like a lot of like individual devs have it on their systems, but eventually now they're going to migrate it into more of a PTU based backend. And they're going to slowly scale it up and put out the fires. I think that's kind of what's going to happen over the next 30 days as they try and hit that mark that you were talking about sometime late September, where they can have some kind of a PTU environment with the persistent entity streaming in place.
Well, one of the things that, we see that, at least on the roadmap, that persistent streaming and server meshing is on the roadmap until mid-December. Well, a little bit. No, I guess that's more like late December. My apologies. I didn't scroll it out well enough. So, and it's been going for 103 weeks thus far.
Wow.
Started back in
couple of
January.
years there.
Yeah, back in January of 2001. So
that's amazing.
Yeah. So they've been messing around with it for a little while. That's for sure.
Yeah.
What are some of the other? Well, before you answer that, guys, if you like what you hear,
oh, we missed this. You're so right.
If you like what you hear, please give us a big thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed yet, please hit that subscribe button. If you're listening on Spotify, iTunes, give us a good rating. Tell us, what you like about it. And, add something down in the comments below. If you don't have a lot to say, just give your favorite emoji. Give us a smiley face. Give us a thumbs up. We love to hear from you guys. So, getting back to what we were saying, what were some other items that, you were talking about earlier that actually some things that sounded, because we were trying to distill what was said, and, was there anything new that we,
the only other thing that shocked me was, shock is, I guess, maybe a bridge too far, maybe a little stronger than I'd like, but they talked about a big focus on character repairs over character resets. So, where you see some damage, characters can repair it. It looks like, obviously persistent entity streaming, if you think about what it is, it makes sense, right? So it's not to say that there won't be more character resets, because there's absolutely going to be character resets, but there's going to be less data integrity issues because of the nature of what persistent entity streaming is, and because there's also these janitorial or life cycle style systems in place. So I thought that was interesting. I thought that was, there were a lot of things that persistent entity streaming meant to me, but it didn't necessarily mean less character resets, and that is something that I believe that they've just decided to kind of at least highlight.
Well, I did like that they, did bring that up. No more having to go and reset your character or, change your character's appearance just so you can unequip a weapon.
Fair enough.
Or pull something out of your backpack.
Yes.
Or, is this going to help with my ship didn't repair back correctly, so I'm going to have to go out, blow it up, and reclaim it. So, maybe a lot of those issues are definitely going to be fixed. Things that we talked about earlier, You know, how many of us, he's like, oh great, yeah, there's my marker where I died, but what is it? You know, maybe 2 times out of 10 when you go to retrieve your stuff, it's actually there.
That's exactly right. I mean, I know that is a well-intentioned system, and I'm not saying I haven't been able to recover my corpses, but I mean, there's been it certainly is far more. At least my experience has been. I've had far more problems getting back to my corpse, or getting there and not having anything there, or even in one instance getting there and I'm not sure whose corpse that was, but it wasn't mine. Little things like that.
Yeah, the majority of the time that there is maybe, yeah, like I said, for me, it's definitely maybe 2 out of 10 times that I
Yes.
actually get something back. It is most definitely more often than not. You get there and it's just a red X.
Yes. No, I agree. 100.
So,
percent
hopefully that will, solve a lot of those issues. Uh, store out, yeah, friends of the channel, friends of Space Shorts will definitely, uh, we have a way to start marking things again.
Oh yeah, that's really really going to be very interesting, right? Because now I don't. It depends on what you're not necessarily going to have things that have kind of like icons on them at a distance, but there may be ways. You know what I mean? It will be very interesting to see.
Parking ships and
Yes, that's the one
things
thing,
like
right?
that.
Because if you take like your gray cat buggy, or like a little thing like that, I mean, you certainly could offload and park. Maybe have something like a Taurus, right? And you have three, or even I mean, even like an MSR or something like that, and you get a bunch of those on there, and you only, I mean, obviously, I think you can just have your ship and two other. I wonder if that will change. If you can have more, be able to pull more ships or whatever. But you'd think you might at least be able to take like two PTVs and drop them off at clusters, or a good mineable nodes or whatever. Yeah, I mean, that's going to be very interesting with persistent entity streaming. And a couple last things, I mean, that's a game changer, I guess, really. But a couple other things that I think are interesting is, it's going to be, very interesting to see. The thing that's interesting about this is that it's not going to be something, lots of times when there's huge game tech, it's because something's been added to the world. In this case, it's going to be this thing that you can't really see, smell, or touch, but it's going to be a giant change to the way things are handled. You know what I mean? So that's one of the. I don't know when the last time they've added something that's so important. Because this is absolutely, if we're ever going to have 500 people, or 1,000 people, or 1,200, or 1,400, or 1,500 people, who are in close proximity to each other, this persistent entity streaming is like a super important part for server meshing. So I mean, those last couple points I definitely wanted to make. It's super important for server meshing, but it's also going to be fairly transparent when you log in. It's not going to look any different. It's not, but they've put a Herculean effort to making it happen.
Yeah, absolutely. We've bandied about that that phrase core tech, but it really is. It's what a lot of things for the future kind of hinge on, and getting it out. So, we've spoken a little bit about the possibility of them cutting, some line items loose from 318 to try to get it out in a more timely fashion. Now, like I said, this is kind of a speculation from our part. I think they're most definitely going to do that. Although, and you know, try to push it to 319. And 319 is gonna kind of be a big one. I don't know. You kind of, once you start thinking about it, if they do cut some things loose and, you know, try to get them more, you know, ready for prime time and put them in the 319 test cycle, is it one of those things where they would feel a little bit better with 319 taking longer than it would have in its PTU cycle over getting 318 out before IAE? Or, well, you know, we know we're going to know a little bit more about it in the next week or so, next couple of days, about where CitizenCon, you know, because CitizenCon is going to be coming up in October, and we most definitely will know a little bit more about, well, hopefully we'll know a little bit more about some other things. And hopefully by that time, at least Evocati will be running for a month at that point. So we might know a little bit more, but you know, the more you sit and think about it, I know they'll probably cut some things loose from 318 and try to apply them to 319. Because I know they're trying to stick to a schedule for this year. So they can say, at least we got this core tech out this year. And everything else will kind of be pushed a couple of months into the future for Q1 of next year.
I don't see a way around it. I mean, you know, it's just no one
more bloated, or
Yeah.
they're gonna kick the can down the road for a lot of different things. So
Yeah. I mean, they're just, you know, unfortunately 30 days or 6 weeks becomes quite a bit of time. You know, I mean, it's slid open a little more, and listen, persistent entity streaming really is the thing that has to get done, and it has to get done right, and has to get done stable. And, you know, and you and I have floated the idea that maybe, you know, it very well could be autonomous teams working on all this stuff. Although they did allude to the fact that with the persistent entity streaming, it's gotten to be a fairly large team at this point. And I would imagine if they're bug fixing, having to drag, you know, different people in from different areas of the company to kind of fix things who have specialty knowledge over particulars. You know what I mean? But I will say, you know, as you know, like I said, you know, as you look over the list of things in 318, I mean, we've seen lots of these things. They've been shown off in different, you know, in different states or whatever. The one thing that we just have not really seen a lot about is the, you know, is the cargo refactor. And you know, we'll see. I think it'll all come to light in the next couple weeks or whatever. But I'm not gonna lie. I'm concerned about that particular thing for sure.
well, yeah, I'm of two minds of that. I know, I know it was one of their big ticket items, and I know they absolutely wanted it for 318. But you know, I think persistent entity streaming is the biggest or the most important thing to get at. So, and you know, like we talked a little bit about it earlier, we know, or at least we feel like, you know, hole stripping and things like that are, I think it's in a place where they feel like it's okay. With the cargo refactor, that is really, because a lot of that is going to play on server meshing or and persistent entity streaming, where, you know, crates become physicalized. So that's a toughie. I know a lot of that goes hand in hand with the work. So we'll have to see, man.
We'll just have to see. You know, I mean, and listen, I mean, I think we should celebrate the fact that persistent entity streaming is getting in there, you know, and it's, you know, it's such a massive piece to the puzzle, you know, and I mean, you know, at some point they had to cross this threshold, and, you know, I mean, you know, as somebody who's worked in software development, is, you know what, there are times when things slip. You know, even in my own life, like you know, knowing that, you know, for instance, I mentioned early in the program, you know, I have some family challenges right now. There's definitely some contract work and some things that, you know, in my own employment, you know, that are, you know, just getting pushed a little bit. I mean, that's things in a nutshell. You know what I mean? There are times when, you know, things things begin to slide a little bit, and then you just try and make do the best you can. But I am really excited about the fact that the persistent entity streaming is getting in there, and just like you mentioning, how, you know, maybe the whole PTV thing. There's a lot of other things as we begin to kind of think about persistent entity streaming that are gonna, you know, you would imagine that, for instance, like the beacon systems and other things would be greatly enhanced from a performance standpoint, you know, with this new tech.
Well, absolutely. And, you know, them getting this little piece out, and I know they're going to be releasing another little piece that's supposed to be in 4.0 was another where they're introducing more core tech for the servers. So, yeah. And one of the things that we really hadn't talked about a lot, well, we had spoken about it in the past, but you know, this is kind of like the ushering in, this standing in the threshold of things accelerating.
Crossing the Rubicon, exactly.
Yeah, crossing the Rubicon. I believe this next year, we're going to see a lot. Hopefully, they can start freeing up resources from Squadron 42, and we're going to start seeing a lot more devs being able to, you know, really work on the PU a lot more than we've seen in the past 3 years now, that they've kind of went ham on getting Squadron 42 out. So, yeah, you know, this next year, I think we're really going to start seeing big things happen, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and I think they did themselves less. I just want to say, throwing this last little bit, I know some people were salty about not telling us what's coming, because, you know, because things slide and because things change, and people were, you know, regardless how many times you say it's tentative, they, you know, get married to the fact that, you know, Q4, I'm supposed to get this, and it's a loss if it's not there. You know, I kind of, you know, I will say I kind of enjoy the fact that I don't know, you know, kind of what's around the corner next, and certainly I think what's around the corner next, we've talked about is some of the things that are going to slide in 3.18, but there is some things that are, you know, that will get announced or whatever that'll be cool to see coming, and you know, I'm giddy, you know, a little giddy for some of that stuff, but knowing that, I mean, there's a lot of heavy lifting to be done between now and then for scaling up and making persistent entity streaming more solid, and yeah, man, we are definitely turning a corner with this big piece of core tech getting in place. You know, like I think they use the home stretch, you know, and I think that's a good way to say it, and here's to the future. I think starts, you know, it's just going to be great to kind of keep an eye on.
Well, you know, yeah, it's pretty great. It's a lot more fun for us to speculate and, you know, kind of give our educated guesses. Because, we like to see if it plays out and if we were right or if we were wrong.
Yep, exactly.
So, and as it relates to, them changing the visibility of things, I just feel like it just, I think it made things a little bit more saltier because people had certain expectations.
Absolutely.
And maybe a lot of those were kind of unreal expectations. Like you were speaking about your job, and I've been in jobs that I've worked on huge projects that, hey, probably the biggest part of the job itself was working out how everything was going to fit together. Things, you try to, we talk a little bit about, like when we write things out for project management, and we have certain parameters set and timelines, and things got to get done by this date and everything else, and you do your best to try to stay to the schedule. But you have issues. Things don't get delivered on time.
Absolutely.
There's a shortage. There's lots of things that will start putting a chink in your timelines. When you're dealing with subcontractors, something happens, they don't show up, you have to put different teams on these things that you were trying to get out and worked on, and so somewhere down the road, man, something's going to get shorted. And game development is no different than these big world items that we had been that we've had to deal with. So it's just some of these expectations are a little high.
They can get you in trouble, that's for sure. I mean, especially expectations have a sneaky habit of not being met occasionally, and
Look, don't get me wrong, it's disappointing.
Of course it is. Yeah, I mean, everybody wants to see this thing go faster. I mean, heck yeah.
Exactly.
I mean,
Exactly.
no, I don't blame anybody for wanting things to go fast. And listen, I mean, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but CIG, and the team, messaging's important. And I mean, they'd admit themselves that there was many times they could have handled the messaging differently, and I think just kind of what we kind of started on this, the fact that they actually have taken down, kind of what's in the future based on what can slide or whatever. But there was sometimes, I mean, CIG's been like, oh, you can't wait for this crazy thing, but it was not in the pipe at all. Look, if we're just on it, I mean, listen, we love we love this game, man. But there's been a couple of doozies along the path. I mean,
and that's the thing, and that's CIG's. No, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that they didn't play into it, because they absolutely did.
Oh, marketing being what it is, right?
They absolutely, they hyped the crap out of things, and then when they're like, well, now we got to figure out how to actually do it.
Wow, yeah, exactly. And it's crickets on something that they really pushed, you know what I mean? So, yeah, like I said, I don't want to get lost in the weeds there, but, I like I said, I just think it's better the way they're handling it now, just because I think there's less concern about what didn't make the cut. And then, also it just adds to, like, if my brain gets to fill in kind of what's coming next, I get to have some fun with it.
Yeah. Exactly. Well, you ready to
Make the pivot to our favorite subject of the
yeah,
game.
we're at, a little bit of fun time because I know some of this can be rather heady and may be boring for some folks.
Yeah, and I mean, and you and I can really
Dude,
we enjoy this part of the game.
yes. This is our fun stuff right here.
So ship showdown, right? I mean, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about ships and talking about kind of ships against each other, and I you know, it's in round, and you know, for those of you who may not be familiar, I mean, they kind of have this bracket system where they kind of pitch ships against each other. People vote, and then you know, they they just kind of work their way down to round one, round two, the semis, the finals, and then whatever ship's going to be the champion. So. You know, I think Zell and I thought we would plunge through round one and talk about kind of what's happened, with, you know, kind of speak to the different challenges, give our ideas of what picks are, and then, you know, I don't necessarily know how deep we want to go, but you know,
I think it'd be kind of fun. You know, we got a couple more weeks of this stuff. It'd be kind of fun to, you know, I think tonight we'll do a little bit of an overview and kind of give you know, some of our thoughts on it and our favorites, and
absolutely,
and kind of we started this a couple weeks ago where we were talking about, you know, our favorite ships, and then kind of looking at the list and, you know, seeing if some of our favorites are in there, and kind of go over it, and you know, maybe next week we'll see what it looks like, but we'll do a little overview for this evening, and then we'll be able to see what round two looks like, and then we'll talk about the semis, and then whatever gets crowned champion, we'll give our opinion on that, whether we feel like you know, that should, you know, at least it's not going to be the gray cat.
Well, it's so funny, yes. I mean, and Zal and I did chat about this, how they unmemed the ship showdown this you know, time. I mean,
they left the mule in there, though.
You know,
and you know, something that you know, we talked a little bit about a couple weeks ago is that, you know, maybe they need categories. You know, maybe they need ground vehicles, and then they, you know, whatever the ships are. So. And see who all's the favorites. Well, let's get into this a little bit.
Let's dive in here. So round one, you know, is and this, you know, each day as, you know, that comes along here, you get to vote on. So round one was the Redeemer versus the Gladius, and you know, I'm gonna go right off the bat and say I voted for the Gladius. How about you, Zal?
Yeah. Absolutely. The Gladius was always one of my favorites. It was can't believe it was second or third purchase in the game.
Yeah, it's a gold standard light fighter. I mean, it's a great ship. Anybody who's flown it, it's got great performance. It's just kind of one of those ships that's just. It's a good ship. I mean, it doesn't have a lot. It doesn't have a lot of glaring weaknesses. It really is kind of quote. You know, you hate to be so cliche, but it's kind of the meta. You know, for light fighters.
It has excellent flight characteristics.
Absolutely.
Packs a punch.
Yep.
You know, it definitely is a great little ship. I bought the thing back in 2015. Like I said, it's probably one of my probably one of the second ship purchases I had. That was in 2015. Actually, before I could even fly it in Arena Commander, the only way I got to see it was in my big old hangar. You know, I had a big old line of ships. I could go all the way down and kind of sit in the cockpit and play around in them for a minute or two. So yeah, I guess that one kind of holds a spot because has a little nostalgia around it. Now, don't get me wrong, this is going to be controversial for a lot of folks. Um, but I like the Redeemer.
Oh, I love. I mean, when the Redeemer first came out, especially. I mean, that thing's, you get a good group of people on there, and you know, I mean, I don't say this a lot about a lot of things in Star Citizen, but I'm a fairly competent turret gunner, and man, could that thing when it first came out, you could just light things up with the Redeemer.
Well, I'll tell you what, with it's a pretty hard nut to crack now.
Absolutely.
But the when the ship reworks come out and armor becomes a thing, because this thing is heavily armored, it is gonna be one tough nugget to crack. That's for sure.
Yep, and I don't disagree with that. One thing I would have liked to have seen is maybe, with the Redeemer, is maybe a little more of a, like in the bottom part of it, maybe more of a jump seat kind of element to it, or maybe even like some kind of a swap of like the upper and lower deck back ends.
Yeah,
there's a couple of things about it that I just aren't.
Instead of putting the jump seats up in that back area where they have them now,
Right.
Put more of the crew quarters in that upper back area, and then put the jump seats and kind of all the utilitarian stuff in the bottom half.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, that's just me. You know what I mean? I mean, certainly.
Actually, I feel like that has a little bit of a better feng shui.
I agree. I mean, it just seems like it would be a better drop ship.
I mean, if you're doing that dropship gunship, which was which type thing, absolutely. I believe the drop seats definitely need to be in that. Another thing too, along with that, and you could, since they were, kind of merging different technologies in the Redeemer, maybe they should have had, this design would have lent itself well with kind of how the Prowler is, where it has those open bays where people are locked in those open bays on the sides, and instead of having to land, man, they can just jump right out of those sides.
Oh yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with that. That would have been cool too. I mean, it does seem like they've got like a long tailish type thing in the back end where they could have done something where, it didn't have to be exactly like that thing, but yeah, just kind of 2 doors open or 2 doors open on each side, little things, and out you go, type of thing. Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, the Redeemer's an incredibly capable ship. If they slowed down the turrets a little bit on it, but it still hits like a truck for the most part. But yeah, I mean, as far as, one of the things, for me, is the Redeemer going to be in my stable? Probably not. Is the Gladius going to be in my stable? It is. You know what I mean? I think at least that's why. And don't get me wrong. I mean, the Gladius lost the vote. The Redeemers, and I would understand why. I mean, the Redeemers, it's definitely got some unique characteristics to it, and the Gladius is a little bit older ship, and it survives. It moves on to round 2.
It's surprising. I was a little bit surprised, because maybe that's the thing. Maybe because it is meta, people didn't want to vote for it.
Yeah.
So, we have that a lot. We have a lot of these contrarian views that seem to run around in the community. So, and that's okay. So let's look at the Scorpius and the Vanguard.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, well, here's my take. I love the Scorpius. I think it's cool as shit. Does it give me some of those X-Wing nostalgic vibes? Absolutely. It's supposed to. Now, I had this ship. I was like one of the, oddly enough, I was like one of the first persons on the live server to have this ship. And I had it for a little while. And from the moment flew that thing. I thought it was fantastic. I thought it flies great. Um, has packs a punch if you have a gunner with you. Um, I like the overall look. It's one of the newer ships to come out, so a lot of it has a lot of that. You can see where they've changed some of the some of the design features to kind of bring it more up to date. Some of these ships are. Um, I know the Gladius has had its gold standard pass, and it does a lot of great, cool little things. But it's still. I mean, not that a lot of these things are going to be changed because I think some of the aesthetic is kind of set in stone. It's supposed to be an older looking ship because it's been in the UEE Navy for a long time.
Good point.
But you can definitely when you look at the interior and the exterior, all the different things that they you could definitely tell that they really dialed in that ship pipeline. I think it's a cool ship. It looks cool. It flies great. It has all the built-in features, so it's not going to have it's not going to have another pass. The interior looks great. I love kind of like one of the things with like the MSR is that you can look through the floorboard and see through the windshield where you can land and stuff. That's one of the things I like about like the MSR is that when you're landing and you don't want to go to fourth person, you can actually see the landing pad and really helps. I think a lot of other ships need to be designed in that way too, so you can actually you have a better field of view. So I think the Scorpius is pretty awesome. What do you think about the Vanguard?
Well, yeah, I mean, let me just say I voted also for the Scorpius, but of course, the entire, and I know they're speaking to the Warden particular, which is the fighter variant of it. The Vanguards are great. I mean, anybody who's flown Vanguards knows this. You have the Harbinger, which is the missile variant. That's a great ship. That just could clean up, ERTs and, in the harder bounties. You definitely have the Hoplite, which is the jump ship variant, which, we quite honestly picked as our, there are different kinds of drops. Some of them are cold drops or whatever. Some of them are hot drops, and then maneuverability and durability. Of the Hoplite, we absolutely love that ship. Of course, you have the Sentinel, which is the EMP platform there, and that's everybody knows how devastating that can be, and if your shields get down and you get that, you're pretty much smoked. But the Warden is a very, very capable ship. It can take a beating. It can dish out a beating. It's nothing wrong with the Vanguard. Warden is a very, very capable ship. Can be devastating. And absolutely can really rip up. If you happen to be in one of those things and you're against some light fighter pilots who, just maybe aren't at the skill level, you really can put a hurting on somebody. But really cool. I'm not going to say a whole lot more about the Scorpius than you did. It's a fantastic ship. That I really do like what they did with the back turret. The adjusting turret on the Scorpius. Of course, being an old Star Wars fan, there's an homage there that you just can't ignore. I definitely will have to see how it ends up. I'm going Scorpius in that head-to-head.
Yeah. Absolutely right. The Vanguard's it's a staple, obviously. So, most people are out flying the Sentinel. But yeah, absolutely, a great ship as well. But, you know, is the Vanguard probably more durable than the Scorpius? Yeah, probably. But what's cooler? Scorpius, for sure.
Really cool, man. It's the
Really
Scorpius.
cool, man. Really cool.
Yeah, I mean it's really that there's an old school feeling about the Vanguard. There's a new school feeling about the Scorpius for sure.
Yeah. Well, if you're going on feel, I just feel like the Scorpius flies better than the Vanguard. But and for me, we're not the biggest combat pilots out there. So if you were speaking to the combat pilots out there, you'd probably definitely get a different story. So, but I guess moving on, man.
Moving on, yeah.
600i Explorer Edition against the Terrapin.
Kind of
It's
an
an
interesting
unusual.
thing to pit those two against each other, I think.
That was one of the things, man, is that are we that was one of the, we didn't get to talk about this a little bit, so we'll hash it out on stream. Is once they get the final 16, is it like any other um, like they do in tournaments, with football or basketball. Once you get that final 16, then you have a draw, and then you pick the draws between the teams. That way, you're not just kind of like going, hey, well, we're going to put the 600i up against the Terrapin, and I'm sure that's how they did it, where they had where they just had a random draw, and they pull one, and it's like, hey, this is Gladius, and then you pull another one, hey, that's Redeemer. So that's the bracket A or whatever, and then they go up to the Scorpius, and they're like, "Ooh, I pulled the Scorpius," and "Oh, I pulled the Vanguard for bracket B," that type of thing. So, um, because that is an unusual pairing. 600
Yeah.
against the Terrapin. Now, I'm gonna let you take this because uh, I know you have a favorite in this one. So go ahead, man. Tell us a little bit about it.
I do. I mean, well, listen, everybody knows, if you know anything about me, you know I love the Terrapin. The Terrapin represents a future gameplay loop to me that is, one thing, like, I always think of Star Citizens, like space mining and, certainly prospecting. That's right up my alley. If yes, 1,000 years in the future, if I could fly a ship around and find resources to collect and tag them, put some kind of an asset tag on those things and get paid some kind of a head hunting fee for locating these things and allowing miners to come in and scoop those up, that would be me. I would absolutely think that would be the cat's meow of a job. I would just love to do that. And honestly, I feel like the Terrapin is, against the 600. It's an interesting thing. I mean, the 600i is much more capable craft in a variety of ways. But the Terrapin represents to me with its heavy arm, the Terrapin's got so many things that just haven't been realized yet. It's heavy armor. The fact that it actually is probably going to be a better locator of things from an exploration standpoint.
It's got great scanning. It's going to have great scanning capabilities.
It's not going to have the creature comforts of the 600i though. If you've been in one of the 600 series ships, it's great. And I mean, and obviously those 3 size 5s make it a very, very combat capable craft. It's honestly, I mean, for me, it's a very difficult choice, Al. I think I'll punt one more time, and what's your call on that one?
Well, look, the 600i, I like it for what it is. I'm just going to be straight up. I never was keen on the design of the 600i.
That's fair.
I feel like people will argue this point with me, but I feel like it kind of fell out of Origins, kind of that look of the Origin ships. Now, yes, it does have a lot of sweepy, curvy things, and yes, it looks expensive. It has that luxury, it has that luxury vibe for sure. But yeah, man, it's never one of my favorite designs. So, but like I said, I appreciate it for what it is, and that is, it's an explorer ship. It's cool, but man, do I like the Terrapin also. It's just this kooky utilitarian thing that I just dig. Um, and if I was gonna say, if I was gonna kind of be a little contrarian and going against the grain, because I know there's a lot of 600i fanboys out there,
Oh, there are.
especially
No
people that were
question about
doing
it.
ERTs and stuff with this thing, and it was always in the tier list, is always up high in the tier. So I'm going Terrapin. I know a lot of people, and that's the thing, man, is that if we're looking at it kind of and that same kind of vibe, you know, maybe people will pick the Terrapin over the Explorer because they feel like the Explorer's had its time in the sun. So
I'm a
no,
turtle guy, man.
I'm going Terrapin.
I'm a turtle guy. You know that. It was, I mean, listen, the 600i is a great ship. I mean, I actually really do like it. And I think, actually, if I'm not mistaken, the 600i is one of the coolest, like, bedrooms. In the verse. I mean, like, where you have that bed that just literally looks out. I mean, 600i. I mean, cool ship to cruise around in. What an awesome ship. Really, I mean, if you're running... not to be weird, but if you happen to be running around with your gal, however that is, you know what I mean, for you in the verse or whatever. Man, I mean, I just think it's a cool, very cool ship to do that kind of stuff. And I'm a turtle guy myself, Terrapin all the way. I love that ship. I love what it represents, and it's no knock on the 600i. Truly, it's just for me, that's this particular one. Even though I hope I did the 600. People who love the 600, there's lots of them, and I get why. Low hanging fruit for me, was going to be the turtle all the way in that race.
Like, oh man, this one's going to be. I don't know. Maybe it isn't going to be as complicated as I think, but it's going to be tricky. The Carrack and the 400i.
Ooh, yeah.
Now, see, aesthetically, at least exterior-wise, well, interior-wise too, because let's face it, the 600i is a little bit of a mess on the interior as well, man. So
that's not unreasonable. Yeah, the 600i
is a little all over the place. Although it is getting a rework, and they're gonna.
Put that med bay in there.
They're going to feng shui it up a little bit more.
Yeah.
But man, do I dig the 400i. I really do. I think it's a very cool ship. It's fun to fly. It's easy to get in and out of. That's a biggie. And it has a little bit of those cool creature comforts. Something if you want to go touring in. Absolutely.
Yeah.
A great little ship.
And a more durable ship, the 400i, than you think it is. It can take a beating.
Oh, it can. And, it's not like it's Big Brother, where, they put the big guns on it and, its flight characteristics and all that kind of jazz. It wasn't designed to fight back. It was designed to get the hell out of Dodge. If somebody starts shooting at you, you hit the go button.
Very Mercury-like in that regard.
Yep. Basically its guns are facing backwards. So it's like, yeah, we're gonna be We're going to be hitting the trail, baby. See ya. So, and it's going against the behemoth, the Carrick. This is a tough call. Look, I like the Carrick. I really do. I have that big explorer side of me, and love everything that the Carrick represents. Had it in one of the ships I like, top 5. Now, let's be honest. If the Odyssey was in the mix, because a lot of that had to do with available shit, ships that were
absolutely.
But if you, sometime from now, a couple of years from now or something, and you ask me the same question, then I'll probably say Odyssey all the way. But I do like the Carrick. I learned to appreciate that. At first, it was one of those things, kind of almost like how the Mercury was for you.
Yep.
And you kind of grown to appreciate it a little bit more. And after owning the thing, saving up all my P's and Q's and buying the thing, which was no small feat, I learned to appreciate it a little bit more. Especially, we bought it because of gameplay, with the, we always see things in kind of a multiplayer lens. So our purchases are kind of designed and, is how much gameplay can we kind of get out of it?
Exactly.
And, so during that time period, man, I learned to appreciate the Carrick a little bit better. When they finally implement all its features, it's got to be something pretty awesome. But this one's kind of a tough call, man, because now that I'm sitting looking at both of them, I start doing that form and function thing. So I don't know, man. I'll let you riff on a little bit, and I'll have to think on it.
Of course, the 400i is great. I really liked it when they introduced it. I really think they did Origin a solid with that ship. I really like. I don't know if it's called like a shark tooth front or whatever they've got going on.
It definitely has that big fang in the front.
Yeah, big fang in the front. I really like easy access. I really like the layout of the ship. I think that the 400i is a great ship. I mean, it really is. I like the fact that where they have the armory and the gun racks laid out. I really like the star chart in the back. There's lots of things about the 400i that I think are absolutely fantastic. And like I said, I actually have I think it was a Zai was flying the 400i one night when we were doing a free-for-all, and that thing took an absolute beating before it went up. I don't know what was going on that night, but I was just like, it really did earn a lot of respect for me. Honestly, I mean, the Carrick's not my favorite ship, but it's just too much ship. I mean, it's too much ship. It's too good. I mean, there's too, you've got double decks, you've got your med bay. You and I have riffed endlessly on the potential of the cargo bays down there. I'm going to make short work of my decision here. This is a Carrick all the way for me. It's no knock on the 400i. It truly isn't. It's just, man, you get into a room and you kind of you got thrown against a Titan, and that the Carrick has. The Carrick is good in a small crew's hands, and the Carrick is good in a large crew's hands. There's a lot to like about the Carrick, and I'm going to go with Carrick in this particular battle.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's always the Carrick. Now, there's a certain duality to all this as well. It's the what do you think is going to win? What do you choose? And in your day-to-day life, would you pull a Carrick out or pull a 400i out to fly around?
Those are reasonable questions, yeah. I mean, I don't know that I go with the calculus of what I think is going to win, because that's never really going to sway me one way or the other in these votes. But it's an incredibly reasonable question to say, like, in a day-to-day. I mean, the 400i then is a much closer decision. You know what I mean? It's as a daily driver. I mean, it's so easy to get on. It flies super fast. Most of the time, I'm not doing combat. So, but yeah, it's still the Carrack for me.
Well, and it's classic us. We put more variables into this.
We'll introduce the variables and riff on them.
Into these decisions more than I think people are actually. They're like, oh yeah, I like the Carrack better, or I like the 400i better, or whatever.
Right.
I don't know, man. The 400i, it has its own little fan base, and if I was just gonna, do a little speculation, Carrack's gonna win. So, yeah, I mean, it's the Carrack for me as well.
Too much ship.
So,
all right, moving on.
Go ahead, brother.
Oh, I was just going to say, this is an interesting one to me that these two wound up against each other because, the Cutlass Black, what it represents to me is, okay, so you've just gotten into the verse. You are, let's say you've decided to go kind of combat, but you're doing some other things. So you start doing box delivery missions. You start kind of earning your way in the verse. You're dabbling, right? You're doing a little bit of once you kind of get done with the box delivery missions, maybe you want to go ahead and do a little combat, and then maybe you want to go ahead and do a little bunker missions and stuff. Well, the Cutlass Black represents to me that first time that you take like your starter ship and step up. That it's got 46 SCU. It's got a ton of versatility. It's actually fairly combat capable. It's just that next step over the starter line. You know what I mean? It's a little bit more than an Avenger Titan. It's a little bit more than these starter ships. But the thing is, to me, is the Mercury Star Runner represents the step up from there. So. It's
I'd say it's a couple of steps up from there.
Of course, yes. I mean, it is. I don't. It's unfortunate that the Black got pitted against the Mercury because the Mercury is really, really, and it's hard. And Zell knows the story, and I've said it probably more than I was. The Mercury was so flavor of the month. I just wasn't into it. People, and I just by flying the M2C2A2s around, really got to fall in love with the maneuvering thrusters, the Crusader, just absolutely, those, they fly like fighters, these giant ships. And I really began to think, boy, I really took a hard look on Urkel one night at the Mercury, and it is a fantastic ship, and after I've flown it, it is a fantastic ship. And I'll let Zell. I mean, Zell can riff on it all, a ton. This is really a no-brainer for me. I mean, it's the Mercury all the way, and it's really because it's everything the Cutlass Black is, except better.
Well, yes, the Cutlass Black, definitely a great ship. I use it quite a little bit still. Well, let me back that up. I use the red probably a little bit more than I use the black, but I do use the black a lot. And absolutely, as it relates to your next step up from, say, your Aurora or your Avenger, it is definitely it definitely hits that good spot for when you really start making a little bit of money in the verse. Excellent all-arounder, but yeah, and that's the kind of funny thing, we spoke about this quite a little bit about, you always thought it was flavor, like the Mercury was flavor of the month. I never had that bias. I always kind of saw it for what it was because, there was a point in time that I had withdrawn from the game a little bit. So, to be honest, I did, when it was released, I wasn't there for the hoopla. I knew the only thing I knew it as was a concept back in the day. So, I wasn't exposed to the idea that that type of bias. I always saw it for what it was, and I'd always, it. Just as we talked about the X-Wing definitely giving you those Star Wars vibes, I feel like, the Star Runner does the same thing. It definitely gives you that Millennium Falcon vibe.
It does.
And that was one of those first time, in the game, I was saving up my little pennies because that was one of the first things I wanted to buy was the Star Runner. And after I bought it, man, was not disappointed. It is my daily driver. I know, there's a few people probably out there that's, that are exact same way, but I absolutely adore this ship. And then when they get the when they do the next pass on the Star Runner, and they put one of the interior hatch, one of the hatches that goes straight to the cockpit instead of, don't get me wrong, it's not lost on me that you have to pass through like 6 doors before you can even get to the damn cockpit. So when they give us another door that goes straight to the cockpit, and they kind of rework the Star Runner a little bit, man, I think it's going to be fantastic. Absolutely one of my favorites.
The last thing I want to say about the Mercury, and we can move on, is there was a tremendous amount of hype around when it was, but this is the one time. I mean, not the one time, but not the one and only time, but this is a time where, now that I've spent time around the Star Runner, the actual hype was warranted. It is that good of a ship. I mean, it's a great ship. What can you say? Plus Millennium Falcon. Moving on. Yeah. Really?
Millennium Falcon. All right. Next.
Freelancer Max versus the Raft.
Now this is a good head-to-head here. I already know what I like, but I'm gonna let you take this one.
I tell you what, I mean, I'm gonna start off by saying, number one, I used the Freelancer Max for 6 months in the game, if not more, maybe 8, maybe even a year. It was for whatever length of time I played before the Taurus existed in the verse. The Freelancer Max was my go-to, Quantanium hauler. And also a sneaky good ROC hauler as well. Very easy to get the ROCs in and out of that guy. Does better in Atmo than you'd think. It's an absolute Sandy Claus. By the way, I'm thinking of you. Sandy Claus absolutely adores the Freelancer Max. So I can't hardly think of the Freelancer Max with Sammy. I've never seen somebody hype. So just loves that ship. Now, when the Raft came along, I really, really did I like Argo aesthetics. Man, the Raft is cool. The one thing that's, Zal and I know we play this song quite a bit, is, will the external cargo be that big of a difference between the internal cargo? Now, the Max has more, it carries a lot more, it's almost another 30 SCU. It's 96 versus 124, I think. So 28 SCU or something. Very, very difficult thing. The external cargoes, is still yet to be seen. Yeah. So that's where the Raft is a great ship. I mean, it's got aesthetically, all of your Argo sensibilities. I gotta be honest. I think I lean towards the Max just because I really do have a fond memories with that. It made me a tremendous amount of money in Star Citizen.
Well, no secret, we we love the freelancers. Third ship, just if anybody's keeping score, third ship I bought in the game, or third ship I purchased back in 2015 was a freelancer. Absolutely dug that look. It gave a lot of those cool vibes off, and look, man, it's not lost on a lot of people. Look, Prospector's our favorite ship. More than likely, Odyssey is going to be a big fan favorite for us as well. We tend to gravitate towards those MISC style ships. We like the Starfare for all its kookiness. We kind of dig that thing. The Raft for me, and like you said it, we dig that Argo aesthetic, but it was another one of those things where, for its size, it kind of did that same thing like the Hull A did, where I kind of shrugged and was like, what? I know that it holds 96 SCU, and that's not anything small, but I felt like it absolutely should have way more than 96 SCU of cargo. The Freelancer mask, absolutely beats that with a stick. For something that was totally designed to be a hauler, as the Raft was. I just felt like, for me, it fell short on the amount of SCU it can carry. So it had always been one of those things. It's like, yeah, cool, and I like the way it looks, and we dig that industrial style, and it's a cool looking ship, for our tastes. But for me, I feel like it kind of missed the boat on its cargo capacity, especially if it's going to be one of those external, cargo hauler type situations where basically it's carrying shipping containers around.
I mean, I really think the 160, like if it could haul 5 of those 32 SCU cargo containers, would have been a far sweeter spot for the Raft. I agree with you 100%. I could not agree more really with that. I mean, I think 160 SCU would have been, something, being able to haul 5 of those big silver containers would have made that a much more lucrative ship.
Which is kind of a funny thing. We actually, in this showdown, we basically kind of distilled it down to what's the better hauler, which kind of, I guess that's where our minds kind of go to.
Well, and also the versatility, right? With the Raft, you're not.
Absolutely, versatility. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not hauling an ROC with the Raft either. You know what I mean? So you've got the fact that you can haul some vehicles with it too, and of course aesthetically, I think the Raft is fantastic. Like I said, but you're absolutely right. I mean, it just came up a little short on the cargo. I mean, if I can fly, I hate to be this way, but if you can fly an Andromeda, that's an absolute gunboat, and put 96 SCU in that, why on earth do you even have a Raft? I mean, it better be that it's because that Raft can set down, drop those 3 boxes, pick up 3 other boxes, and be gone 45 minutes before the Andromeda.
Yeah.
It has to be that, or I don't know. This is me saying this in the wake of absolutely adoring the Raft aesthetically. I do.
Well, No, it is very cool. And, we haven't seen where it fits its niche.
Exactly.
Because if it's just on pure cargo capacity, then it falls pretty short. Like you said before, man, and that's an excellent point that you made. The Freelancer Max got a lot more. I mean, hell, you could almost use the Freelancer Max like your daily driver.
You could.
I mean, that, it hauls a bunch. It can load, vehicles inside of it.
With that side hatch, it's quick to get to the cockpit. I mean,
flies pretty decent. Has a bunch of missiles. I mean, yeah, it's pretty cool. So I think we're both settling on the Freelancer.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah. All right, moving on. Oh, this is this is kind of a very oddball pairing here, man. So, Avenger Titan and the Eclipse. What's your thoughts?
Well, you're absolutely right. I mean, I kind of look at this. It's like, definitely some analogy comes to my mind. Kind of, something about clowns and yeah, not my clowns, not my rodeo or something. Something. Yeah, this is a really tough. This is a weird one, right? And I mean, and let me state for the record, I haven't been in an Eclipse. I mean, I know what they do. I know what they're for. I think when stealth's a thing, to be able to deliver stealth size 9 torpedoes is huge. People are very capable with those things. It's just a completely different experience. There's really it's very difficult to compare the two together. And of course the Avenger Titan is to me is kind of like, it's the quintessential new guy ship, new citizenship, new gal ship. It's just one of those ones where when I think of happy beginnings, I think of the Avenger Titan. The Avenger Titan's not really in the Eclipse's class in a sense. It's just, it's the Eclipse is just, it's a stealth torpedo delivery system. And really, it's what's weird is I'm really kind of tempted to go Titan in this particular case, and it's not because, I mean, the Eclipse is a cool ship. It's got really cool, man. It's a stealth, torpedo variant, our stealth torpedo delivery system. So I don't know. I'm going to go against the grain. I think that it's the new person nostalgia that the Titan offers. The fact that I actually recommend purchasing that one if you're, as well. I think that probably, if you like you were saying, like picking on what's going to win. I think, to me, it's almost like a no-brainer that the Eclipse would win. But for me, if I look at those two ships, and I haven't even spent much time in either one of them, but the Titan is kind of the one that I think I'd pick in these two.
Well, for me, and I'm going to have to preface this with saying I have an absolute bias against the Titan. I ended up hating that ship.
I can appreciate that.
Not for the reasons why you would think. It's not because of its capabilities or, as a starter ship, I feel like it's definitely competent in that role. It holds 12 SU, I believe. And it does have an interior, and it has 2 different egresses, right? So you can climb out the cockpit or actually go through the ramp. And I'll just short little story, and I'll tell you why I hate the Titan. Because, I went and bought the thing. I hadn't, I was like, well, I need a little get around ship. So I went up and bought several different ships in that size frame. And so I bought the Titan. and to see, if it'd be a decent little ship. That ship hates me, and I hate it. First is kind of, and I don't know if I ever told you this story. I might have told you this story. First time I'd ever walked into the Titan. Bought it brand new, spawned it. I was on Area 18. Walked into the, opened the ship up, walked into it. As soon as I walked into it, it blew up on me.
Oh my stars.
Fully loaded out, man. And I was like, son of a bitch. Okay, fine. Claimed it. Spawned it back in. Went back to the hangar. It was upside down.
Oh my goodness.
Spawned upside down inside the hangar. Walked up to it, then it blew up and killed me again. And then I was like, this piece of shit is cursed.
Oh my gosh.
And so it became relegated to this was the 3-strike. It was a 3-strike type situation. Okay. Spawned it again for the third time. I was like, well, fine. Okay, cool. It didn't blow up on me this time. I finally got out of the hangar with it. And I flew it to Yella. Flew it to Yella, and I was going to do one of the little caterpillar missions. Found the caterpillar wreck on Yella. Landed. As soon as I landed, ship blew up.
Oh wow, that's crazy.
Stranded there. And I was like, you know what? I've had it with this ship. and
that is crazy. I don't know that I have heard that story. But I mean, that would instantly sour me. I get it for sure.
And it became one of those. What was funny about it as well is it became one of those ships that kept multiplying in my damn, in my fleet.
I think with the ship multiplier bug in 317.
Yep, I ended up having like 5 of the darn things, so.
Oh, man.
It ended up becoming relegated to making those big 2 SCU containers. I'd take it out and blow it up.
The Titan to you is like my Valkyrie. Every time I get in that thing, I get killed or blown up.
Yeah.
It's just...
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but it was the Valkyrie. So, not to put a finer point on it, the Eclipse for me. I've flown the Eclipse a couple of times. Like we'd spoken, we're not big combat dudes, but flew it a couple times during Jump Town, and it definitely has its fun factor. But it also can be a ship that is kind of designed for trolls. So in that, not with that standing, say, the Eclipse for me, I guess. So
fairly reasonable.
I think that's about where we diverge.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, now, as you told the story, I can absolutely understand. I think all of us have these, if you play Star Citizen long enough, there's one ship or another, for whatever reason, it just doesn't ever seem to click or whatever. And the Valkyrie's been mine. It's so funny because I know Streams loves that Valkyrie for like ROC and and stuff, and there are people who adore the Valkyrie, and every time I'm in a Valkyrie, people die. So I have the same experience there.
Well, I remember that last mission when you finally were kicking rocks and was like, that's it. So yeah, that's funny, man.
And it was, and listen, that was entirely my mistake. I mean, I made some pilot errors in there that 100% I own, but still, I feel like I feel cursed in that ship. So move it.
All right, well, moving on to the last one here.
So yeah, this is kind of where the meme comes back in, right? I think.
Yeah.
But
look, let's just, we don't have to put a lot of thought into this one and to go on a giant diatribe. But the Pisces, excellent little ship.
yes.
Love that thing. That thing is really great.
It's your runabout. It's your homage.
Yep. And the mule. I bought the mule just, to get that token. I don't even think I've spawned it in since I bought the thing, several months ago. So, will the mule be worth it later down the road? Don't know. We'll have to see. We know it. Maybe it's it's kind of like a concept for a concept. It's one of those deals to see if the idea would work, but it definitely, I don't think it's going to be the cargo hauler that everybody thinks it is. I think they're going to have to design another cargo hauler, something that's, it has those forks in the front, but it isn't a forklift. They're definitely, if they're going to want some sort of loading vehicle, some sort of ground loading vehicle that, doesn't have anything to do with tractor beams, then they're absolutely going to have to design something that's like a big forklift.
I agree with that. The mule to me seems like a rework almost waiting to happen. Or if it's not, I really am not. It's a miss for me. It's cool, and I love its size, and I love the fact that it can actually zero turn is really cool to me. But
I honestly think it was put out there to sell that, lifetime time.
Yes.
So, and that's okay. I'm with, I was under no illusion of why I was buying the thing. It's like taking my $40 and then putting in something that, I can add the, lifetime insurance on. So,
also, the Pisces Expedition Edition, like it's an excellent craft. I mean, that thing it's a great. You can actually land those things on a dime. They're super duper fast to do delivery missions with. It's just a great little runabout. An absolute, like if you had, like maybe you were shuttling things from maybe a couple of, someday when doing base building, maybe flying from, say, let's say you have kind of a mining operation kind of up on the mountain, and then maybe a homestead or some kind of a down at the lower. That would be a great little ship to run right into, jump up and fly on up to the top, grab whatever you want to grab and bring it back down, type of thing.
Absolutely.
Super fast. Like at doing that kind of stuff.
Yeah, it's a grand little ship, especially if you have to haul 3 people.
Yeah, I mean, it's got 2 jump seats in it. It actually physically has quite a bit of ground room in it, and I actually used that ship at one point, where I would store the cargo boxes in it and pull it out and have some, when there was a little bit of persistence with the cargo boxes, it almost used it as like a dressing ship. You know what I mean? It didn't. Of course, the persistence didn't hang out around as long as you'd like, but anyways, yeah, I adore the C8. That's a no-brainer between the mule and the Pisces for me.
Oh, absolutely, all the way. They need to make more of those runabouts. The expedition type runabouts. Something that I'm kind of curious to see, since, it's built for the Carrack. I'm wondering if it's going to have a little bit more functionality in the future. Some sort of scout role.
Scanning array or something. Yeah.
Scanning those little areas that, you didn't necessarily want to bring the Carrack down to the surface or whatever, or try to, maybe it's one of those situations where it's kind of one of those gassy planets that you can't see much until you get down low and you don't know where to land. It may be kind of like one of those liquid methanes, or it may be
Yeah, that's awesome.
maybe one of those, lava, one of those lava planets that, have to find the good place to land, that type of thing, where say the planet is very unstable and you just can't fly around because, like there's, rocks being shot up into the atmosphere and you don't know if you're going to get hit by one, and, got to find a place to, kind of land on the surface or whatever the case may be. So yeah, something like that. That's absolutely cool. But I guess that's gonna wrap it up for us, man. I think I hope everybody enjoyed our little list here, man. We had I had a lot of fun with that. What about you?
You know what? I think tonight was great. I mean, honestly, I think we did. It's very helpful, because sometimes something like persistent entity streaming, it's a little bit dry, but a great, but very very important, super important core tech. But it is always nice to pivot over to something that I think is always in our wheelhouse. It's kind of a slow pitch to knock it out of the park. Is ships. And I just enjoy your perspective, Zell, on ships, and I think that you and I, there's a lot of similarities, but we also there are occasions where we really do make points on ships that are, unexpected, but absolutely, speak to their use case or along those lines, and it's great. So, for myself, I just want to thank everybody for hanging on with us tonight. It was an absolute, just a pleasure to do tonight's episode. And I, if you're a fan of the show, please, you'll know kind of, I do this kind of handoff to Zell at the end of these, and he always brings it home. So if you wouldn't mind, sir.
All right, brother. And as always, man, I love our conversations.
Truly.
We've been talking for 2 hours, and honestly, if people just let us keep rolling, we'd probably be talking till about 1:00 in the morning. So
that's true. That's true. Our poor wives sometimes are like, really? Yeah.
But you guys, if you liked what you hear, give us a big thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed, man, make today that day you subscribe. And please leave us some comments down below. If you're on iTunes, Spotify, make sure you give us a good rating out there. Absolutely, we'd love to hear what you guys have to say. Tell us what we're doing right. Tell us what we're doing wrong. And with that being said, we'll see you next week on another Rock Runners Report.